Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a huge story where a court ruling, some railway hotels, and a multi-million-dollar land deal are all colliding, right in the middle of a massive election. Let's break down the IRCTC scam.
So just as Bihar is getting ready to vote, a court in Delhi drops a bombshell. It decides that three of the state's biggest political names, Lalu Yadav, Rabri Devi, and Tejashwi Yadav, have to stand trial in this long-running IRCTC scam case. The timing is, well, it's pretty explosive. So how do we get here? And what does this all really mean?
And you guessed it, this decision has kicked off a massive political firestorm, splitting opinions right down the middle. On one side, you have the opposition crying foul, claiming this is a deliberate political attack. And on the other, you have the ruling party saying, hey, this is just the wheels of justice finally catching up. To really get what this is all about, we've got to jump in a time machine. We're going back to the years between 2004 and 2009. That's when Lalu Yadav was the Union Railway Minister, and that's where this whole story begins. The case itself revolves around this one entity, the IRCTC. Now, you probably know them from booking train tickets online, but they do a lot more. They handle catering, tourism, and crucially for our story, they manage a bunch of railway hotels all across India. So the central charge is what you'd call a classic quid pro quo, basically a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of deal. Investigators are alleging that the leases for two of those IRCTC hotels were given to a very specific company. And what did they get in return? A prime piece of land in Patna that they claim ended up benefiting the Yadav family.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. This wasn't just a simple swap. Investigators claim this was a pretty complex transaction. Let's try to follow the path they've laid out.
Investigators believe this whole thing was a carefully planned four-step shuffle. Let's walk through it. First up, a company, Sajata Hotels, puts in a bid for the railway hotel leases. Step 2, that same company sells its very valuable land in Patna for way below market price. Step 3, right after selling the land, guess what? Sajata Hotels wins the hotel contracts. And for the final move, years later, that land gets moved through another company and into a new one called Lara Projects, which just happens to be owned by the Yadav family.
Now, here's the number that really makes you stop and think. The company holding that huge 3-acre plot was allegedly bought by the Yadav family's company for just 64 lakh rupees.
And this number is what blows the whole thing wide open. Investigators allege that the land, which was effectively picked up for just lakhs, was actually worth somewhere around 94 crore rupees. I mean, that's not just a big difference. That is a staggering, unbelievable difference.
And if investigators needed a cherry on top, well, they found it in the name of the company that ultimately got the land, Lara Projects. They say the name itself comes from the first two letters of Lalu and Rabri. You can't make this stuff up.
So you might be wondering, if this all happened way back in the mid-2000s, why is it blowing up now? Well, this has been a very long and winding road. Let's take a look at the timeline. So the alleged offense happens between 2004 and 2009. But then, look at that huge gap. It wasn't until 2017 that the CBI even filed a case. A charge sheet followed in 2018, and now, all these years later, the court has finally said, yup, there's enough here for a full trial to begin.
Okay, so now that we've got all the pieces on the board, let's get back to today and see exactly why this court order is causing such a political earthquake right in the middle of the Bihar elections.
As you can imagine, the opposition, led by Tejashwi Yadav, is coming out swinging. They're not just calling this a political attack, they're connecting it directly to alleged threats made by the Home Minister just a month ago, basically saying, we told you so.
But on the flip side, the ruling coalition has a very different story. Their argument is pretty simple. This has nothing to do with politics. It's about accountability. They're saying the law is just taking its natural course, and this day was always going to come. So, what are the actual charges here? We're talking about serious stuff. Criminal conspiracy, cheating under the Indian Penal Code, and charges under the Prevention of Corruption Act. Put simply, the accused will be on trial for allegedly planning to cheat the public for their own gain. And if they're convicted, these charges could mean up to 7 years in prison.
Now, it is really, really important to get this part right. This court order is not a guilty verdict. Framing charges just means the court has looked at all the evidence and said, okay, there's enough here that a trial needs to happen. This is the starting gun, not the finish line. The real legal fight is just beginning.
So if you're a voter in Bihar, What do you even make of all this? It really throws a wrench in the works, doesn't it? For some, it might highlight old corruption allegations and weaken the opposition. For others, it might look like a political hit job and create a wave of sympathy. Either way, it completely changes the conversation, shifting it from today's issues to yesterday's scandals.
And that, at the end of the day, is the million-dollar question hanging over this whole election. Is this just the legal system working as it should, slowly but surely? Or is it a perfectly timed, calculated political move? In the middle of an election this heated, the answer really depends on who you ask.